Hello again. Continuing on with animations. Today we're going to add a little bit of spice to our animation blueprint, because at the moment the only thing, going to the animations folder and clicking on this blueprint, the only thing determining whether we are in the running animation or not in the running animation is a boolean. Rather than do that, because that doesn't take speed into account, we're going to change this over so that the animation will play at the appropriate speed to how fast we're moving. So let's get started on that. The first thing we're going to do is right click here on vector length, and we're going to promote that to a variable, and we're going to call that variable speed. Now speed is going to essentially replace is moving, but because I don't want to break anything just yet, we're going to just leave is moving here now. But that's essentially where it will go. Now if we pop over to locomotion, we can see here that the decision we're making to go from idle to run is based on if there's any movement. This is fine if we have one animation set up, because that's all this is doing, calling the one animation. But what do we do if we want to pick between multiple animations inside of this state? Well, luckily there's a solution for that. Hop over to the test map, right click here, go to animation, and go down to blend space 1D. And select our hero FPP underscore skeleton, the same way that we selected a skeleton when we did our animation blueprint. So for now, let's just call this B underscore hero run. We can call it whatever we want later on, and open that up. Now this is a blend space. Here we can line up a bunch of animations and have it change between those animations depending on a value. So if we go up here to horizontal axis, this is essentially, if we think of this somewhat like a function, we can essentially adjust this here as an input. Now we're not going to see that input immediately, but let's change this to speed. Next up is the minimum and maximum values. I'm going to put in a value of 900. And I'm going to show you why I'm putting in that value a little later on. Referring back to this graph, now, because we've changed the name here, this is now a measure of speed. We have 0 at the bottom because of the minimum axis value, and we have 900 at the top because of the maximum axis value. Now the amount of points or lines here, definitive points where we could put things, in this case animations, that is determined by number of grid divisions right here. We are going to have 4 states from beginning to end. Here we have 5. We have the beginning, 3 in the middle, and 1 at the end. So I'm going to drop this down to 3. Now we're going to drag some animations inside of here to blend them depending on what the speed is. So if we go to the asset browser, let's grab our rifle idle, drag that in and put that all the way on 0. So that's what happens when our speed value is 0. When our speed value goes up, then we're going to blend between this and another animation. We're going to grab our rifle run, and we're going to put it on the second line, or the line to the near right. So when we're at a speed of 600, this animation will be playing, and if we're at a speed lower, then we will be blending back here. And if we drag this over, we can see that that animation is blending between them. So what we need is 2 more animations. We need a walking animation for a speed of 300 and a sprinting animation for a speed of 900. If you've had a look at these animations, then you'll be aware that we don't actually have those animations coming from the other stuff. But fear not, I have a solution. Let's attach the blend space up here. We need to change this name at some point because we also refer to our blueprints as B underscore. And let's go back to the test map and go into the animations folder. Find your rifle run. And if we have a look at rifle run, I'm just going to pause that animation for a moment. We can see here that there's a rate scale. This is the speed of the animation. So we are playing this at 1 times, exactly the same as the video you're watching now. If you go to the speed section, you can change the speed to half or double. We're not going to change the speed of this animation. What we're going to do is pop over to the asset browser again, right click on FPP underscore rifle run, and we're going to duplicate it. We're going to call this rifle walk, FPP underscore rifle walk. And then we're going to duplicate it one more time, and we're going to call this FPP underscore rifle sprint. I know we haven't designed a sprint functionality yet, but we are going to design one. And you know what? We might get a very basic version set up here because sprinting is easy. Stamina, we'll get back to that. So let's open rifle walk and go to the speed. I'm going to type in 0.5 here, and I'm going to hit play and see what that's like. That's a walking animation. This would also work for crouching. We don't have legs at the moment, but it does sound like it's a crouch. Those sound effects being built right in really help. Now back over to our test map here. Let's open up rifle sprint and let's punch in 2 for the rate scale. And now let's hit play and see how fast that is. That's pretty intense if I'm being honest. So maybe let's try this 1.5. Yeah, I think that's more of a sprinting. This is to your personal taste. I'm actually going to go back and see if I can get another one for walk. Maybe a 0.75. See if that's any different. Yeah, I'm liking the 0.5. Let's keep the 0.5. Let's go back to our blend space, which has disappeared. I'm not sure why, but let's go and open that up again. Perhaps it was a tab at somewhere else. And with our blend space now, let's go over to rifle walk, drag that on the line to the nearest left, and rifle sprint, drag that on the furthest line. Now, if we grab this green diamond here, we can see what the difference is between them. Although we're not going to see that difference unless we hit play. So that'll be our normal walking speed. Then we'll go to an actual walking. This will be running. And this will be sprinting. And then we'll stop at nothing. So let's save that. Now let's come back over to AB underscore hero again. And here we can see at the very top, we've got a blend space. We can tell it's different because of this little color here. We probably need to change the name of the end of it too, because it's too similar to FPP rifle run. So let's drag that in. There's 2 ways we could do this. We could still designate a rifle idle and then a rifle run. But if we want to get rid of the moving variable altogether and its dependency, what we'll do is drag over to hero run. We'll open up hero run and we can see the blend spaces here. And with this, we can now drag speed. So this was the input we talked about before. Now let's go back to locomotion. And now we don't need to switch between rifle idle and rifle run in here. We can do it directly within the blend space. So let's drag this over here. It's going to get a little bit complicated, so I'll just move these out of the way. All we're going to need to do is replicate our is falling as we did here. So that's easy enough. And then back to locomotion, we'll replicate our FPP underscore time remaining for rifle jump end. And you can see that Unreal's picked up on the fact that that's the animation it's coming from. So let's grab a lesser than. This also solves another problem, which I will explain to you in just a moment once I've plugged this in. Compile and save that. With this setup here, there's no lines connecting idle to jump start. So I'll just drag this down here, see if I can get out of the way. So this was the old setup. And so we would have to be running to enter the jump animation. Now we could drag those lines off over here. And so we can go from idle to jump start and then jump end there. And we can also check as we come back that we are either moving or not moving, but we don't need to overcomplicate things if we can avoid it, because there will be plenty more animations to come and we want to keep our state machines and, for that matter, all of our code as simple yet effective as possible. So now let me get rid of these two here. Drag up our new hero run. And that should be our new state machine. Let's hit compile and save and go and test that out. And there we go. It's working. I can jump. I land. If I stop and jump, jump works just fine. And now let's go and test our speeds because we haven't set anything to walk. If you're using a gamepad, you've already got at least a difference between walk and run. But what I'm going to do is put in a temporary sprint function now so that we can test that sprinting. For walking, if we actually hit play and press our crouch button, we're already moving at that walking speed right now. So that's already kicking in to give our crouch a much more reasonable animation time. If we'd actually selected it before, it would have looked pretty ridiculous. So crouching is fine. We've got a difference there, and so we're simulating a walk, and you could also set up a button where you press that and you switch to walk. It'll be the same theory as what I'm about to do now. So let's go to b_hero. Let's go get our sprint command. Let's see if we've already done it. Sprint. We have not. So let's go over to the test map. Let's click the settings drop down. Go to project settings. Go to inputs down here. Let's collapse these so we can see what's going on. Fire, aim, gadget 1, 2, 3, 4. Got a pause menu, a game menu. We've been at this for a while. It's almost a year now. And then let's hit axis mappings and create a sprint. Going to hit drop down. I'm going to type in shift and I'm going to use left shift to sprint for PC. And then I'm going to add another input. Well, I'm actually going to hit the gamepad drop down here and look for gamepad left thumbstick button. So that's what happens when you click into the thumbstick. So let's hit that up and then we'll come back over to Hero. It is going to be a fairly complicated script when we eventually do get to it. So let's type in sprint. We'll give it a bunch of space. So now let's go and drag in our character movement and let's set max walk speed. We'll grab 2 of them because we're just going to alternate. For now, I'm going to set up a sprint that is held. Make sure character movement is plugged into both. And we'll punch in our 900 value because our standard value for walking is actually 600. And one bit of proofing, we'll just make sure that is crouched is not. So we can only enter the sprint if we're not crouched. Or better yet, you could also do uncrouch so that if you start sprinting from a crouch, that's a better idea. I like that idea. If you start sprinting from a crouch, then you'll just go ahead and do it. And then release. Let's compile and save that. Walking, walking, walking. I press shift. I hold shift and I'm sprinting. I let go and we're walking. So let's try that again. Good stuff. If I'm crouching, crouch is actually held, so I don't think there's any situation where, unless you had them toggleable, which I've just showed you how to avoid having a toggleable crouch, ruin that. But that's a very simple sprint for the sake of showing our animation. If we're sprinting, we go into a jump. So good. And if we're crouching, we can't jump, but that's fine because that's an Unreal feature. And yeah, we're pretty much there. That's pretty good. So I'm going to leave it there for now. We will continue on in the next episode. Thanks for sticking around.